everyone, welcome back to the Buccaneers podcast. You're hearing a different voice today. Chris is not on the line, but I am here, Carmen Panamava, Associate Director. And today we are joined by Axel, who is our latest intern. And we wanted to get him on a podcast to talk about vertical farming, which is something he's been looking into doing his market research in. So I think out of everyone in the room, he probably knows the most. Axel, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Was that a fine enough introduction?
Yeah, just putting the pressure on me, saying that I know the most out of us. So
Gonna be
I'm curious.
Farming investor one day.
Maybe.
So just to give a bit of background on what you do you want to just introduce yourself, what you're studying, what you've been learning, etc.?
Yeah, of course. So I recently came to London from Belgium, where I study financial business economics at the University of Antwerp. And I came to London to develop my professional skills, of course, to meet new people, expand my network internationally as well, which I have already done at WGP Global, and I hope to expand on it even more during the coming month.
Oh, great. I'm glad you're learning so much. Well, without further ado, let's kick into the vertical farming research, because I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that. Do you want to just explain what vertical farming is to those of us who don't know?
Yeah, of course. Vertical farming, the words really explain the concept itself. It is the growing of crops in vertically stacked layers, which drastically reduces the space which is needed instead of traditional agriculture. And also because it can be done inside. It reduces the threats from outside, like threats from weather or threats from plant diseases, for example. So crop production can be significantly augmented by using vertical farming instead of traditional agriculture.
Yeah, okay. And the types of vertical farming that you have researched, that was quite interesting. I mean, I think one of them you mentioned was aquaponics. That's the one with the fish, yeah?
Yeah, indeed. There are actually three different types of vertical farming, which are most practiced around the world. So as you mentioned, aquaponics, which is basically, there is a fish tank in the production area. And then the wastewater from the fish tank is used as a nutrient water for the plants. And then these plants, they filter the water, which then again flows to the fish tank. So the fish are swimming around in clean, fresh water. So that uses the concept of hydroponics, actually. Hydroponics is the most frequently used type of vertical farming, which is basically hydroponics doesn't require any soil for vertical farming. So what this means is the roots of the plants are just left in the water, which flows underneath it. And so they don't require the nutrients out of normal soil, but they get their nutrients out of the water. And then there is one concept which is quite different from the other two, which is aeroponics. So aeroponics means that the roots of the plants are actually suspended in the air. And by suspending the plants in the air and then spraying them with a nutrient-rich mist, that should increase the oxygen intake from the plants, which would eventually benefit crop growth and be even more efficient than the other two.
Yeah, well, that's pretty interesting. I mean, even though that there is a bit of water used in the process, it's a lot less intensive than traditional farming. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Most of the research is now showing that it actually needs 90% less water than traditional agriculture. So that really shows vertical farming's potential.
Yeah.
Mostly in areas where where water supply is quite low, like for example the Middle East or in Africa. So vertical farming shows great potential over there, certainly.
And obviously with the arable land issues and space issues and supply chain issues, this is becoming a more widely known concept. Imports of food and crops is quite a big challenge for many countries, isn't that, I suppose?
Yeah, of course, it also addresses the supply chain issues, for example, because vertical farming can really localize or even hyper localize the food production, which basically means that crops can be produced almost anywhere, as long as you have a vacant building or a container in which you can set up a vertical farm. So yeah, the scalability is almost infinite. Yeah.
So you mentioned containers. Does that mean it's not necessarily vertical because containers are quite wide, or can it take up different shapes and spaces?
Yeah, of course. It can basically be done anywhere. I mean, within a container, obviously that is a contained space. But then again, if you have 2 containers, 3 containers, then the scalability is there, and you can really create your own container park.
Yeah.
as I can say, yeah.
Do you have examples of big companies that are doing this and who's investing in this industry?
Yeah, there are some really big companies in the market right now attracting some significant investments. The biggest companies are mostly located in the USA, with, for example, Plenty, which is a company which has attracted a lot of investments. Bowery Farming is another one, in which, for example, individuals like Jeff Bezos have invested, Eric Schmidt, which is an ex-executive from Google, and even celebrities like Lewis Hamilton or Justin Timberlake have invested in that. So that's quite fun to see. And there are also, not only in the US, of course, there are all around the world, there are investments being made into vertical farming. So yeah, there are a lot of examples.
Well, where are most of the investments in the companies coming from? Like US, Dubai?
Yeah, the investments are really coming from all over the world. You mentioned Dubai. We're now seeing a big spike in investments in the UAE and more generally the Middle East. We're seeing that is really becoming an innovation hub for vertical farming and agricultural technology in general. But also in the US, there is a lot of investment. In Europe, there is a lot of investments going into the business. So the business is really becoming global, and we're seeing several companies upscaling quite big.
Yeah, I heard about the case study on the Dubai or the Middle East vertical farm. It's the biggest one in the world. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, of course, I want to talk about it. Yeah, so the largest vertical farm in the world has just been built in Dubai, near Dubai. It was a cooperation between a vertical farming company called Crop One and Fly Emirates. So you might be thinking, like, why would Fly Emirates invest in a vertical farm? Well, of course, Fly Emirates, they serve food on their flights, so they need flight catering. And more in general, investing in agricultural innovation is really important for them. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's quite interesting. Talking about flight food and the different types of food you get, what type of crops are usually grown in vertical farms?
Yeah, with regards to the costs and the complexity of growing the crops, the choice falls mostly on leafy greens, so mostly lettuce and stuff like that. But they're also researching to grow different kinds of berries right now. So, for example, strawberries are already grown vertically as well. The problem is a bit with plants that grow fruit, because these can be quite heavy, and are not very suitable for vertical farming infrastructure. So there's a slight issue in that aspect, but I'm sure that will be overcome in the next couple of years. But the biggest problem is mostly with pollinating plants, really, because it is, of course, in a contained environment. Vertical farming, that means that there are no insects to pollinate other plants.
Yeah.
So that process has to be done manually, which requires, of course, a lot of labor, human labor, which of course costs money. Yeah.
Exactly. Going up from the value chain, I mean, we've spoken about the operational element of it. What about the automation? How are software companies doing with collecting the data and that side of things?
Yeah, we're seeing that that most vertical farmers still collect their data themselves, do a lot of research themselves on how to make their operations more efficient. So I think that there's really quite an opportunity there, with regards to mostly data collection, and also still process automation. Yeah, data collection. I mean, if companies would really want to benefit from that, I think they would benefit most from sharing the information between companies and creating a kind of community, which yeah, through which they can most make their production most efficient. Yeah.
Vertical farming hub kind of thing where, yeah, all vertical.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Just talking about, there was one, sorry, we were talking about the opportunities. You mentioned that. So from my understanding, the gaps at the moment are the high operational and capital expenditures that go into creating and operating a vertical farm, as well as the energy use. So I think energy is one of the biggest resources used by vertical farms. Do you see any future for that being resolved, or has there been any progress on that front?
Yeah, there has definitely been made some progress right now. Yeah. What I saw most in my research is that there's really a shift going on in the industry right now. Whereas it used to be, the focus used to be mostly on making production more efficient and getting higher crop yields. But now we're really seeing that companies are focused a lot more on cost reduction as well. And you mentioned lighting, which is one of the most expensive aspects of vertical farming. Lighting solutions are becoming more and more efficient these days. Big companies like Philips, which has a lighting division called Signify, is doing research into LED technology. There are also other lighting solutions like HPS lighting or fluorescent lighting, which are very promising. But I still think the opportunity lies more with LED technology, because this is a very versatile lighting solution, which is also very energy efficient.
Even if you would think about like off-gridding with the switch to, you know, circular economy, where you switch to reusing water, solar panels or hydroelectricity, hydropower. I think I've seen a lot of those starting to prop up now, off-gridding vertical farms. I think the question comes in, are you willing to pay the higher upfront capex costs and then reduce the operational costs in future, or vice versa? Would you rather invest into LED lighting, look at that, and then experience less or lower capital expenditures as you start up? So I think that's one thing that these vertical farms are kind of in a little debate with, but it will be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, for sure, it will be interesting. Yeah, I am currently seeing some companies which are actually investing in using completely renewable energy, so with no dependence on traditional energy production whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that is also, again, why we are seeing a lot of investments in the UAE being made. They have an abundance of renewable solar energy over there, which is one of the main drivers for innovation in that region of the world. And also in other parts, like in Denmark, there is a large plant which is fully running on renewable energy. So, I mean, the possibilities seem to be there and seem to be exploited right now. So, yeah, really looking forward to it.
So just to make sure you're going to stay in this industry, start being an IR person for a vertical farm one day.
I'm sorry?
You're going to be an investment relations person for the vertical farming industry one day?
Well, I might be. Currently, I'm quite enthusiastic about it. Yeah. Yeah, and of course, the business is only growing, so I might as well hop on the train and follow the trend. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Well, thank you, Axel. That was very informative. Nice, short, brief overview of what's happening in that market. Yeah, it was a pleasure having you on our podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions.